Welcome to the CFO Track podcast, where we inspire and educate future finance leaders to help them stay on track to CFO. I'm your host, Tom Hunter, and every week I'll be bringing you stories from some of Australia's best and brightest CFOs and the lessons they learnt along the way. My goal for the podcast is to provide learning and development opportunities for those wanting to get to the level of the guests on this show, but they just didn't have the access to those lessons otherwise. Let's get into it. Today on the show, I'm joined by Nick Verrecchia, the CFO of South Pacific for international logistics business, DHL Global Forwarding. After starting in the corporate head office for DHL in Europe, Nick took on the CFO role for Canada before moving to Australia and overseeing the South Pacific region. Nick's approach for constantly learning and growing his career is one that you need to listen to. So here we go.
Nick Verrecchia, welcome to the CFO Track podcast.
Thanks, Tom, for having me on.
Welcome. How's the week been?
Week's been pretty good so far. Very busy as always, but we've closed out the books. Going through now the cleanup, understanding what's going on, and then looking forward to basically October, where we are, what we've got to do differently. We've got to get planning because budget time's coming, our favorite time, obviously. So we're doing that. At the moment,
just got back from a trip, didn't you? How was that?
I did, yes. Yeah. I took 2 weeks off, went visiting my in-laws in Canada.
Lovely. Yeah.
So my father-in-law had a nice long list of things for me to do. So it was all work, pretty much. No. But yeah, it's good to get away.
Always takes like a week or so to get back into it as well after a trip. So you're settling in?
The first week, yeah, but usually when you come back, for me, my work doesn't go away, so it just waits. And then when I get back in, I try and, on the plane back, I start trying to go through all those emails and catch up. And yeah, the first week is quite intense. You put in some long hours just to catch back up to where you were, what you've missed. A lot of reading to do.
Yeah, I hear. So I've given you a little bit of an intro, but for those listening, it'd be good to get an outline of who you are, what you do.
Okay. So Nick Verrecchia. Currently, I'm the CFO of DHL Global Forwarding South Pacific. So I look after Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea, manage all the financial accounting, but also what we call business partnering. We call it controlling. So it's where we work with the business using the financials to drive them. Part of obviously the wider DHL group. So I report back up into Singapore and then into global.
Yeah, gotcha. And so the whole idea behind the pod is to give up-and-coming finance professionals, hopefully future CFOs, access to the development pathway. So going back to the start, you didn't do an accounting degree, did you?
I did not, no. I went and did something totally different. I did mathematics with computer science, and this is when computer science was really, really new. Like, I was one of the first people to do those type of courses. Shows you how old I am.
So how did that happen then? How did you get into accounting?
Afterwards, I realized I needed a job, and you've done all those tests. Back then you did tests of what you were potentially good at. Obviously, I got hurt, so I couldn't be a professional sports person. So I blew out my knee, and I thought, well, I better get a job. And we had always talked about accounting, so I thought I'll give this a crack. Applied, got a couple of offers, but I didn't know if I really wanted to get into it. So I did what they called an accelerated course. So all the people who do accounting degrees skip the first year. I did of training outside of in accounting. I did an accelerated course, which meant I did that in 10 weeks. So full on 10 weeks. I was in Bristol back in England.
Which business though?
I worked for, I started with a company called BDO Binder Hamlin, and they got taken over by Deloitte. So basically Deloitte.
Yeah. Great.
So I did the first year. I caught up with all those people that did their accounting degrees in 2 months.
Yeah.
Meant that when I walked into the office, nobody actually knew who I was because I was 3 months late. But that's a different story, I suppose. And I just thought for me, well, that if I'm going to do this, I want to know, I don't want to waste a year doing something that I might not like, I might not be good at. You never know. So for me, that was just a great way to test the waters and see if I was any good at this.
And so would you recommend going and doing that again?
Yes, for me, definitely. it's very intense. And there was the thing, if you failed, you were fired. So there was definitely that, I better work on this. It was really intense. But there's two of the guys that I actually met on that 10-week course. I'm still good friends with. I meet up with them every time I'm in the UK. We go out for dinner. I've been to all their weddings and all of that. They've been to mine. So it definitely formed a bond when you're all in it. There was only 10 of us on the course and we all knew the consequences. So,
Yeah,
yes.
cool. So you took that first role out. That was at Motorola, was it?
So after I did Deloitte, I became a manager, and then I decided, looked forward and said, do I really want to be a partner? And I decided not to be. So I stepped out to Motorola, became a financial analyst, working for the infrastructure to business. So everything that makes your mobile phone work. Very interesting. I priced up things like whole mobile phone networks, hundreds of millions of dollars for whole countries. A lot of high tech stuff. It was actually really interesting to get into.
And so that was still in the UK, right? And then
Yes.
And then that's when you made the move to Switzerland.
It was, yes. After a while there, I was looking for my new challenge, and somebody said, I've got a job. It's a bit further than you thought. And I thought, oh, it's London, and I didn't really want to go to London. He said, it's Switzerland. And I went, oh, that's a bit further. And so did the interviews, got the job offer, and then it was a case of, do I jump or not? And I thought, well, you need international experience. So I just said, I'm going to go for it. If I can stick anything for 2 years, if I come with my tail between my legs afterwards, that's fine, but I'm going. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. I loved it.
What was part of the decision-making for moving internationally? Because you must have been still fairly early on in your life and career.
Yep. I realized I wanted international experience. I wanted to get out of the UK and see how the rest of the world. I had met people from other countries, and I always remember one lady telling me the UK doesn't always do things the best. And that stuck with me. And because when you grow up in an environment, you think that's the only way of doing it. So I thought, that's good. I wanted to change anyway. When you've been doing the same thing or in the same kind of environment, I thought, well, this is definitely going to scare the hell out of me. And it's probably good. When you're in that safety bubble, it's not always the best. Plus, the job actually was quite exciting. It was actually looking at business cases, very different to what I was doing at the time, and asking questions, challenging the business in a positive way to say, okay, is this business case right? Have you considered all these facts? Which I thought was going to get me thinking very differently on a broad range of topics. The company I was joining, basically DHL, different branded, it was worldwide as well. So you've got that different things are coming in from different areas. And I thought, well, let's go for it. And I just packed up, left everything and moved.
What's the relationship between Danzas and DHL? How does that interact?
Okay, so Danzas is a company so going back to history, Deutsche Post own Danzas. Right. They use that as their vehicle to buy other companies and develop. Years later, they bought DHL and they rebranded everyone. They reset us up. So Danzas no longer exists. It's now rebranded DHL. Okay. And it got split up into different divisions. So in the logistics side, we have 4 different divisions, and 3 of those came out of Danzas, plus the acquisitions over the years of XL, AEI, and a few others. And all rebranded DHL. So it's probably easy to say I'm with DHL.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So that was the entrance into the business, and you've just incrementally moved up. So I think it was another role that you progressed through still within Switzerland. Is that right?
I did multiple roles in Switzerland. I think as what you'll find is, I think I'd been there about 2 months, and a temporary staff member left, gave 1 week's notice, and my boss walked in and said, I need you to do the budget. You're the only one available. This is now your part of your new job. And when you read your contract, it says any other things. Yeah, they literally mean any other things. So I had to quickly learn the budget, the system, update the templates, communicate out to the business. There was literally not much left did that. And then probably about 6 months later, and my boss walked in and said, one of the managers over here is not having a good time with their staff. Do you mind swapping? So inside a year, I was already on my 3rd role. I took over a team. The budget seemed to come with me for some reason.
Yeah.
It just followed.
Is that
I
hard
don't
to
know how I
settle
got rid of that.
with that sort of change early on? Does that make it hard to settle?
No, I found it quite interesting because you keep moving, you keep learning. As I said, the budget came with me. The team, I did know the team because they were in the office next to me, big offices. And, they said, we're going to give you a hard time. I said, go for it, And we actually get on. Funny enough, I'm still in contact, email, birthday and Christmas cards with one of those team members now. They couldn't come to my wedding. Yeah, so we head on, and it just went from there. We had that was basically closing the book. So Dan's at the time. I was then I can't remember the name of the title, right? Reporting and analyst. So I took all the reporting, we consolidated the books, and then printed everything and moved out. And yes, back then we did print all the books. You had a big, thick book that we had to take around to everyone. So yes, it was quite fun.
So was that a head office role or was that divisional at the time?
No, that was the head office for Danza. So I consolidated the books for the two divisions. We had two divisions, basically what we called solutions and forwarding. Can't remember the name of what it was. We also had some trucking. So maybe we had three divisions. I can't remember back then. Still 80 countries around the world, all came in, and then we had to work with them to consolidate the books. Very old system.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so you were in Switzerland for what, 7, 8-ish years, something like that?
7 years, basically, yeah.
Yeah. And so were they all corporate head office roles, or did you start to move divisional?
No, after that role, I turned to my boss after about 18 months after that one, said, this isn't really for me. So that was in about 22. I then took 10 weeks holiday. And I said to him, find me my replacement. I'll train them up, and then I'm going to go on holiday.
Yeah.
And he said, you don't have a job to come back to. And I said, that's okay. So I trained up my replacement, went on holiday, came back, and there's always things to do. So I was assigned to an ERP implementation project. As I said, we had a very old system. So then we implemented SAP. So for the next year, I worked on a project. I did the reporting. I did a lot of the, whatever you want to call it, the underlying data, restructured it, brought it up to speed, recoded the units. Worked for basically a great project manager in that respect. A lot of battles over certain things, but really good.
Yeah.
And for that was the next year. And then after that, I then moved into a divisional role for global forwarding, based in Switzerland. And then I basically closed the books for them for 3 years. But at the same time, typical, Deutsche Post decided to do a new ERP system. So I ended up going from one ERP system so I worked on the data model for global forwarding, what I'm in it now. So a lot of coding, a lot of structure changes. We also bought a company called Excel, which was a large acquisition. So I had to integrate them, their accounting policies. Back then, I had to do it on Excel spreadsheets. I had big Excel spreadsheets because their policies and our policies just didn't match.
Yeah.
So that was quite fun. And then I left Switzerland to take up a country role.
So how does that role come to fruition, moving from Switzerland to Canada at the time?
So again, that's probably something that I would say is I used to sit down with my CFOs in this instance and ask them what they thought about me, where do they think I could go.
What was your title at the time?
One of them was the reporting and planning. When I took over the reporting of Danzas, I went to the CFO there, and he gave me some good advice of where he saw me, what he told me, you can get to this level. I wouldn't ever promote you beyond that because of this, this, and this. So I had to go away and work on that. And then when I was working, I'd gone over to the division. I worked with our global CFO directly, and I asked him, I said, okay, I want to get to this level. What do I need to do? And he said, you need to get out from head office and go into the field and get field experience.
Yeah.
And then you can circle back. And I said, fine. And then he said, look, I need you for a couple of years because I had to integrate Excel and finish off that ERP integration. But I dealt with all the regions. So I reached out to all of them and said, look, I'm looking for this type of role. What do you have? They all knew me because they dealt with me on a monthly basis. And then there was a couple of job offers came up that they needed, and I selected the Canada CFO role.
What were the other options?
I could have been the head of controlling for the whole of Asia based in
Okay.
Singapore.
Yeah.
So when my family go Singapore, Canada, and they go, lovely Singapore, safe, low taxes, financially great weather versus minus 20 in Toronto, they still think I'm mad. But
Yeah.
I took the role that nobody expected me to take. Yeah.
So what does that mean differently from a day to day? So going from the head office to out in the field, like you're saying.
The simplest one is the size of the numbers.
Yep.
So I once had somebody who went from where I was in Canada back to the head office for an assignment. And I sat them down and said, right, I'll give you some advice. You're going to get there and you are going to be dealing with global head office. Do not talk about $100. Okay. In the field, we fight over $100. They talk in millions. Okay. It'll be $1 million here, $1 million there. It'll almost be like, yeah, just throw $1 million at it. You fight here in country, $50, $100. I said, it's a different scale. You've got to think what they're looking at the big picture. They actually don't care about that individual transaction. And that's the biggest thing. When you're looking at the global, you're more strategy, you're the big numbers, the directions. When you're in the field, you get down to you get your hands dirty. You're down at an individual transaction. Globally, they'll do 1 million transactions a month. So any individual transaction has minimal impact to them. They're looking more for direction. So I had to try and explain that to her. And when she got there, she laughed. She said, yes, they talked in millions. They talked about 100,000 of this, 100,000 of that. And she goes, I couldn't believe the numbers, and then comes back and goes, I come back to my old job and I'm fighting over $50.
Yeah.
So very different mindset.
Yeah. Okay. And so had you been to Canada before?
Yes, I actually dated a Canadian girl when I was like 18. So I had been to Canada, but I'd gone in the summer. Yeah. And I Googled it. I looked it up, the cold weather, and it doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah. All right. So that was your first CFO role?
It was, yes.
Yeah. Right. So new country, new weather, new role. How was that? What was the first 90 days like?
Well, to be honest, I walked into the office, I met my managing director, and the first thing she said to me is, I don't want you here. I thought, okay, this is going to be very interesting. The previous CFO was now working for me. Okay, so that we had that environment, but he actually became my head of accounting. He's still a good friend. I was in Canada recently, caught up with him. We had drinks.
Sorry, what happened there? Why did he step back?
As I mentioned, we do accounting and controlling, business partnering. He was great at the accounting.
Yeah,
Business partnering just wasn't his thing.
Yeah, fine. Was
So it actually
managing
worked.
awkward?
Not for me.
Yeah.
I knew I was walking into that. He and I sat down and we had a great chat at the very beginning. I said, this is your area. This is my area, and we actually got on really well.
Great.
He thrived in that environment because suddenly all that stuff that he didn't like doing was taken away from him. He got to do what he did. He also educated me on certain things as well, which I thought was great. My country manager, to roll forward 5 years, I think they were trying to change things and she was like, Nick's my CFO. You're not getting rid of him. So I'd gone from, you don't want me, to I'm keeping him. And that took a lot of work and a lot of energy, but yeah, we actually ended up with good friends at the end of it.
So what projects did you get exposure to given your first regional, divisional, local role?
Well, my country manager, she threw something at me. She said, right, we've got 5 sites. Find us a site to consolidate in. Go. That was all I had. And it was like, okay, what type of building do I need? I don't know. But it was a test, obviously. And I found some people who could educate me. And I definitely, no matter what you come up to, you will not know everything. And I'd recommend to everyone, seek knowledge from people who are smarter than you, know more than you. Trust them. I spent a lot of time with a guy called Mike who headed up one of our products. He could tell me what type of warehouse I needed, things like forklift moves.
This is an internal person?
Yeah.
Okay.
By the end of it, I could walk into a warehouse, look at it and go, this won't work. I knew because I had he had taught me well. And every time he came with me to a warehouse to look around, I would say, it's because of this, this, this. He goes, yes, and he basically educated me. We actually found a warehouse that was 100 meters from where one of our existing sites. We consolidated in there. They're still there today. I can remember taking the finance person around an area that was like an old showroom that had been gutted and explaining to him, couldn't see the vision. I said, trust me, you'll get it. And we afterwards, once we kitted it out, it was a very nice area. He
Yeah.
goes, I couldn't see it, but now I could. Now, once we did it, he goes, yeah, this is really good. We put a lot of future proofing into it as well. So I think they're still there. So I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, gotcha. And so what prompted the move out of Canada to Melbourne? How did that start coming up?
Again, once you've done a role for a certain time, you've got to keep moving. And that's probably one of the things that, as a young professional is don't get stuck in one role. Keep moving. If I look back at all the roles I've done, up until the Canada CFO role, I'd never been in a role for more than 2, maybe 2.25 years. I kept moving. Different
Yeah.
roles, different experiences, even taking the Canada role. I looked at the Singapore role and said, but I've done some of this already. With the CFO role, I hadn't really done payables, receivables, general ledger, getting into the detail. So that's kind of why I took that role. This role was a step up. Again, Canada is a nice country, but it ranks probably 20th in terms of size and complexity.
Yeah. What sort of revenue are we talking at the time?
1 to 200 million. So nice. It had 2 big sites and a couple of small sites. We call it the Goldilocks. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's not too complex. It's not too simple. It's just right. And it's good ground to cut your teeth on, but you
Yeah.
don't want to stay there forever.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, I loved it, but then this role came up, so I applied. It's a lot bigger. Plus, they were implementing a new operational system and ERP system. So
And
I
you're
thought
out.
I've got that background. Also, this was going to be what we called the new forwarding environment. So we called it NFE. It was going to be our next step. Our operational systems were quite old, and I wanted to be at the forefront. It actually turned out to be a complete disaster, that system. We had to roll it back. But again, you learn from what happened, learn from the mistakes. Where could you have interceded earlier? But yeah, that was kind of 2 or 3 years I won't get back, but it was difficult going through a lot of stress, probably aged 10 years. But looking back, I try to learn from, okay, what could I have done better? What did I do? The good thing about it is, if you talk about resilience, Australia was the one country that didn't get qualified. So when you've got total no visibility at all of your financials, and we managed to get through all the audits, we're the only country to do that of the 5 pilots.
Yeah. Okay.
So definitely good on that side. Again, as I said, it's a step up.
Yeah.
Managing multiple countries, you've got bigger teams, more product. The revenue here is a lot higher. It's magnitude higher. So definitely where I wanted to go next.
Is it the same process that you went through in terms of just putting your feelers out with internal stakeholders across the world, or how did you land on Melbourne?
I knew a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people knew that I wanted to move. So I, as you said, kept feelers out to people. Hey, what's going on? We have an internal job watch as well. So you can set up reminders or banners of what's going on. This job actually came because the head of controlling, so financial analyst, business planning for Asia, I knew. He flicked me the job advert and said, hey, you might have missed this, but you should apply. So I went, okay, I'll apply. I checked it out with the wife to move from Canada to Australia, because that's obviously a large move. She said, go for it. She was up for an adventure, and yeah, managed to get the job.
Yeah, happy days. Did it take you long? Because had you been to Melbourne or Australia much before at all in the past?
Yeah, I backpacked around. I've been a few places when I was younger. So yes, I'd been down the East Coast backpacking. I hadn't actually been to Melbourne, but to been down from, the sites, let's say from Brisbane all the way down to Sydney. Plus, my brother was living in Perth at the time. He had followed a girl, and it was like, okay, all right, we're going to move. Be a lot closer than we were.
Yeah. Did it take you long to get settled into that role or into the business, into the new life?
As I said, they went live with a new computer system, so I got thrown in head first. The first 6 months, I don't think I really slept that much.
Seems like a common theme.
Yes, it is. To be honest, I think it was the first couple of years I didn't sleep that much. It was, you know, it was a very stressful time. We didn't have the resources. The best way to describe it is if you, please don't, but if you get into your car, just shut your eyes and try and drive. It's very difficult when you have no visibility of what is going on. But we fixed it. In the end, what we had to do was we had to admit that this is the globe, admitted they were wrong, and we rolled back. We had to
Yeah.
go back to our old system. We've now implemented a completely different system, off the shelf, working a lot better. It's a lot more in the market, so it's off the shelf.
Yeah.
And it's a lot simpler life these days, let's put it that way.
So now that you've worked across 3 continents for effectively the same or similar business, does the role compare in the company culture, the country culture? How does it all compare between the 3?
They're the same but different. At DHL, we're very diverse. So when you're in the head office, you've got a lot of diversity because a lot of people come in from different countries, different ideas. Canada or Toronto is a melting pot, and same as Melbourne. So my team here, I have probably 10 different nationalities working for me in a small team. Have to get on, have to understand each other. Operate, obviously, because we're an import-export, we have to deal with all of our countries overseas. They're different cultures, different time. You just have to get used to dealing with them, understanding that even though English is our standard language, it's most people's second language or third.
Mm.
And that can be a challenge. Sometimes I forget that I speak English and people don't necessarily understand what I say. So I have to check myself sometimes. English phrases come up and I go, do you actually use that one here in Australia or Canada? And sometimes they'll go, no, but we understand what you mean.
So are there any particular points you'd give advice to for someone that is making that transition across different countries that might be within this countries, continents, regions, whatever, but within the same business?
I'll start with, I think it's like anything. It's when you arrive, listen to people, have your first 90-day plan, as you said already. You should have roughly that worked out. Some of the things we all make say, well, back in Canada, we do this. Yeah, people don't want to hear that. So maybe just look at the phrasing a bit better. Don't point out that your other country was so much better. I think we've all made some of those mistakes. Sometimes it's go out to lunch with people, sit down with them, get to know them, not just your team, but all the team members that you're going to meet up with. Understand the different culture. The first question I got asked by my team here was, who's your Aussie Rules football team? Nothing else. That was the first thing. That was the first question I got asked. I didn't have one, and they didn't like that. So I said, look, wherever I end up living, that's the team I support. And unfortunately, I ended up living with a team that's been bottom for the last 10 years. But hey, it gives you something to talk about.
Yeah.
I think you have to get into the local culture. So for me, sports, I got into the Australian football. I can talk about any of the other sports or cultural things that go on that here, and get out and about and see Melbourne and be able to hold a conversation.
Yeah.
That's kind of key. Build those relationships because ultimately you're going to have to rely on other people to get the work done.
Yeah. And so given it's such a long stint, how do you continue to grow and develop in a business when you've had such an extended period?
If you're talking DHL or just here?
Yeah. Oh, here, both. Yeah.
As I said, I keep changing roles. I don't stop still. What I would look at there is I get a lot of advice. Some of the things I talk about is, I mentioned, I sit down with very senior people sometimes, even when I was a junior, and said, okay, what do you see in me? Where do you think I can go? What do I need to work on? This is the level I want to get to. What do I need to do? I would say get that feedback, and you can do it in a positive way. And it could be on a job or a project or Don't wait to your yearly annual review. You can ask, hey, Tom, what am I doing well? What are the one or two things I'm doing well? That gives you a bit of positive, gets the mindset. But then say, Tom, what are one or two things I can work on? It doesn't have to be what I'm bad at. It's just what can I work on?
Mm.
I also looked at continual learning. Each job I've done is different from the last one. I don't repeat if I can help it. One of the things you look at is look at the job description. If you can do everything on that job description, you've done it. What are you going to learn? Okay. If you can do 75% of it or 50% of it, that's great. That means you can learn and you keep, especially at the early stages, maybe you have a 2-year cycle. Every 2 years, you should be changing roles. Okay. Even inside the organization, talk to your manager, plan that out, say, right, this job role is 2 years. What am I going to be doing afterwards? What's my journey? I think people forget that they're in charge of their careers. Okay. People think it's the company's going to help them, and they will. But what happens if you change company? Well, you're the only one that keeps going from company to company or job to job or country to country. Definitely on that, get that feedback, get the visibility, continually learn. It's not just the technical skills, those soft skills are more importantly as you go up. In my role, I joke with my team that I don't do anything, this because their job is to do. And my job is to review, to manage, remove roadblocks, use their work to plan the future. But they're the ones who are digging into spreadsheets or pulling data, doing analysis. If I have to remind myself, if I start doing that, then I'm not actually doing my job. My job is to influence business direction. It's not to do a journal.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you'd considered a move externally?
Always.
Yeah.
Multiple times. Even in DHL, I've looked, every time you look to change roles, you should look externally as well. 2003, remember I said I was on that project. I looked externally. I've looked both at DHL and outside.
Yeah, okay.
When I was in Canada, what's my next move? If I'm not going to, then I'm going to look outside. I looked outside, see what's available. Again, it's got to be interesting for you to take that move. Then suddenly this role came up. I've looked outside. Even from this role, I've looked internally, applied internally for a few roles. But you also look at externally to say what's out there. I'm looking now at non-exec roles as well.
Okay.
Very different. I've not done those before, but I'm a director here. So as I thought that's a different stint. I can also see different companies, how they work, get new ideas. Especially with some of the changes that we're making or that's coming down the line. Others might have different ways of thinking. And that's also something that you, as a supervisor manager, when you start hiring people, we talk about diversity a lot. The biggest thing for me is you want people who think differently to you in your team. Don't have clones of yourself, because then you all think the same. I love it when somebody's in there and we have a good, robust discussion on they have a different way of thinking about something. It means that we probably are going to get to a better result, better outcome than if it's this way. So that's definitely some advice I'd give you.
Would you do anything differently?
Oh, I've made so many mistakes. I wouldn't want those again. But yeah, I think we'd all like to do it. I try and learn from my mistakes, but I don't do the what if. I think if you can avoid what if I had done that, or what if I had done that, I just don't go back. You can't change it. Learn from what you've done and move forward. I try and keep looking forward, because if you get into the what ifs, and I did do it early in my career, you spiral down. You make yourself so depressed. Just don't. If you can avoid it, don't do it. Look forward. Okay, I am where I am. Let's learn from the mistakes I did. And I also I made that decision based on the best information I had at the time. That subsequently there was extra information that I should have changed. Well, yeah, okay, that changes. But I try and remind myself of that and then just go forward.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's good advice. So COVID must have been really interesting for you, because lots of logistic businesses did really well off the back of it, but you guys are very air and plane centric. So that can't have been ideal. So what was that like?
Again, I've been here for a while, but my role has almost been 4 different roles. We
Yeah.
had the rollout that went bad, then we had to roll back. So again, very different unit. And then we had COVID.
Mm.
COVID was again very different. We're logistics. So of course we've got warehouses. So suddenly it's like, what are you going to do? Again, what we had to do was protect everyone. How'd
Mm.
you keep everyone safe? And we were scrambling just with everyone like everybody else. We managed
Yeah.
to procure a lot of laptops, sent everyone home. But then it was
Were
like,
you set up for it prior, or did you have to just
no,
flick the switch and go get them?
we had to go get them.
Yeah.
And our head of IT, I don't know what he did or how he did it, but he was getting computers from anywhere flown in to laptops. So suddenly everyone had to go out, but we've obviously got a warehouse to run. So suddenly it's like, how do you protect the workers that can't work from home?
Mm.
So we had to have shifts, but then we had to make sure that on the handovers, one team had left, the cleaners came in, cleaned. Then you had the second shift. So you had one shift waiting, the second shift waiting in the car park for the first shift to have left, 10 minutes and all of that to try and minimize because, and the issue you had there is if anyone went down on shift 1, you couldn't then say, oh, I need somebody off shift 2. Well, no, because they have to stay in shift 2. So we had those challenges, definitely. We had to set everybody up at home, which from a health and safety perspective, suddenly your home office, I'm not sure if that's your home office, now that becomes a workplace.
Yeah.
So now health and safety applies to that. So we had to get photos, we had to get documents, we had to get signed off, a lot of admin. So that was kind of on the operational side. On the business side, yes, it had a massive impact on our business. We were very lucky. DHL Express is our sister division. They got the 8th largest air fleet in the world. So we did have access to planes that other people didn't.
Yeah.
But again, we still work with your carriers like Qantas, etc., on what they were doing. Planes flew with no people, just cargo. And in each of the seats, there was cargo. So instead of a person, they put cargo there to try and maximize the space.
Yeah.
Freight rates went up because there was lack of capacity.
Yeah.
So suddenly people didn't want to pay the extra fees. So we saw a lot of volume drop. Very worried about obviously letting people go during that time. We managed mostly to just not to do any of the retrenchment.
Yeah. Okay.
We managed natural people leaving. That was definitely a benefit to us.
Mm.
And the good thing about DHL is we did have deep pockets so that we could keep extra people on. And then, we just had to work through it. And as we got better at it, I'm not saying we were perfect. We got into a rhythm. We moved to like this Zoom calls or we basically back at Zoom. So suddenly it was a very different way of working. I was used to seeing my staff. So what I did there was set up Zoom calls. I have a lot of ladies who are single. So imagine being trapped in your house, who are you going to talk to? So we set up Zoom calls, not talk work, but to basically just, how are you, Tom? And we ended up watching Netflix, as in people would know Netflix, good recommendations. We had three of my ladies go on mat leave in basically the beginning of 2020.
Right.
And of course I couldn't replace them because I couldn't hire, I couldn't do anything. So the team stepped up. But what we saw over the next couple of years is we saw the babies grow up on camera. They became part of the family.
Yeah. It's not.
And one of them recently, she loves coming in here. She's now 5, 6.
Yeah.
And she loves to come in. She knows who we are. She comes in because she gets chocolate.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how what we did, we're now all very comfortable on camera where we weren't before. So very different, challenging. But I think we all learned a lot and we changed the way we work. Good or bad, it's just different.
Yeah. It's just experience, right? Just working through it. So where's the business at now? Like, what are the big projects, challenges you're working through at the minute?
I can't tell you everything. That's a secret. So what we're looking at is continual growth. Okay. But it's got to be profitable growth. We're not going to just go for market share and all that. Sometimes we'll get rid of customers because we just can't make any money out of them. And ultimately, we do need to pay people. So what we're currently working on straight after this, I've just got to finish off what we call a BCA, business case analysis, for our site here in Melbourne. So we're looking to refurbish it at global board level now. So they've come back with a few tweaks they want, or could you just change the wording here? It's really dot the I's, cross the T's. That'll be a 12-month project to refurbish our offices and our warehouse, building some extra capacity for certain products that we want to drive, that we think there's an upside in the market going forward. And that's in line with our corporate strategy. So the corporate strategy sets out where we want to go from now to 2030. And there's certain segments or growth opportunities, what's growing the market that we can play in. So we're looking to get ready for that and then see that growth coming.
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting. That's a tens of millions that we're looking to spend, but that'll set us up probably for the next 10 years.
Okay. Wow.
Hopefully only 5, because I always say, right, well, you plan for 10. I want you to max it out in 5 because I'm greedy. So that's one. We're still working on a business case for Sydney. Market, very different assumption. We did go up with one. We're talking hundreds of millions. 6 months ago, but we got knocked back. I told them, trust me, but they said, no, I can't trust you with that size of money. And I think that's something else to be mindful of is you get disappointed because you put in hundreds of hours of work on something and then somebody up the line will turn it down. And you always have to remind yourself, they probably have more options.
Yeah.
Fighting for the same funds. And, they might decide today, that one's got a better return, so it might not be that your case is bad. It just might be somebody else is slightly better.
How do you deliver that to your team though? Because I imagine they're putting in heaps of work as well. How do you deliver that situation?
Well, you were disappointed. We usually then have a morning tea, go out and have some food and cake to not to celebrate, but to commiserate. But usually there's questions that come back. There'll be, well, we turned it down because of this and this.
Yeah.
And some of it you can answer and say, I could do better there. Again, that's learning from what you did. We had 2 questions. One, we probably didn't do the sale and leaseback section as well as we could. That's simple. That was a couple of extra slides. It was in there, but it just didn't, let's say, pop out. It was like 100 pages long, the document. So we could have made that pop a bit more. And the other one was what's happening with the new airport at Badgerys Creek. Well, we put in every piece of information we knew, but we can't tell them what's going to happen in the next 3 years. We can only say this is the projections. And they were not too keen on that area. They wanted more information. So again, that one you can't actually answer.
Yeah.
Because we gave them everything we had that is in the market that we know. We talked to the airports. So yes, it's disappointing, but when you can explain to the team that, we take it on and we say, look, we have to do something. So we will put it to bed for a few months, dust it off, and come back and ask for even more money.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. We will go back. We've got a couple of options at the moment that we're working our way through. We'll see where we are. Not sure of the timeline. Maybe we'll get back to it this year. Maybe it'll be in the early new year. But things change. We've had a change of leadership at the top. So our managing director has changed of global forwarding. So we've got a new gentleman in. He is more into the proposal that we put up. It's more his thing that he likes doing, where it wasn't necessarily. It's a different mindset or outlook, for instance. It's probably a bit of what we can do. He's slightly different. Just so happens that it's more in what we were presenting. So we think we'll get a better hearing the next time.
Yeah. Okay.
But definitely what we're going back with, we'll go back. We'll have learned from what we have. Most of the documents that we've already done, still great. So it will be, usually it's a mad dash of, okay, late nights, early mornings, couple of weeks, and then we will get up the line again. But we've got to go through all the levels again. That's what takes time.
Gotcha. Well, you've been great, Nick. Longevity, like yourself, for a long period of time is a really great thing, and I think that's hugely underrated. I've really enjoyed hearing about your growth and progression over that time. So, really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tom, for inviting me. Anytime.
No, you're welcome. So if anyone wants to reach out, ask any questions, or just get a bit of advice from yourself, what would be the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm not there every day, so I'm not one of the kids who runs around with social media there, but I do get back. Just take me a bit of time. That's all.
Gotcha. Oh, thanks again for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the CFO Track. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. I'll see you next time.